we're talking about tough dynasty decisions, startup draft decisions. I feel like everybody, whenever they say tough decisions, it's always a buy, sell, hold type of scenario, right? What do we do with this player? But there's a lot of times when you're on the clock, and I don't know about you guys, but what's been happening with me a lot lately is when we get to a certain point in the draft, I feel it's always too early for a player. Like I could wait a round or two, but that's not always the case. We're going to talk about guys that we want to build our teams around. So we're going to be facing ourselves with tough decisions. We're here to help you guys. There's going to be some strategy involved too. So all ADP is provided by DLF, and that's May ADP. June ADP is not out as of this recording, June 6th. Happy D-Day. Happy International Slayer Day as well. These are meant to be discussions. That's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to air it all out. So imagine you're setting your cue. You're going away for a massage therapy convention for a little bit with Zack. And you want to be able to just set your sleeper cue, kind of forget about it a little bit. So we're going to put 3 players in there, and I will tell you their current ADP. We're going to set our cue between Garrett Wilson. Current ADP is 20, just about the 209. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I know Zack is pretty high on, if I'm correct. Current ADP is 23, which is the 211. And Jalen Waddle, current ADP is 24, which is 212. So in what order are you drafting these guys and why? Zack, how about we start with you?
I don't know if I'm changing that order. I think it's going to be Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jalen Waddle, and that's really tough. I could make an argument for Jalen Waddle and Amon-Ra to be flip-flop there, just because I think that Jalen Waddle's ceiling is capped while Tyreek is there, and Tyreek's going to be there for another 2 or 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, until his contract runs out. But his ceiling with Tyreek there is still a top 10 wide receiver, which is insane. I think Amon-Ra's ceiling is exactly what it's been the last 2 years, maybe with a little bit more consistency. He was injured last year. I expect Jameson Williams to eventually become something. Jahmyr Gibbs is there now, and I don't know what the quarterback situation looks like in 2 to 3 years, but I just, he's a PPR monster. So if this is a full point PPR league, I think I'm going to leave it just like that. Garrett Wilson is my unquestioned wide receiver 1 out of those 3. I'll go Amon-Ra St. Brown 2 and Jalen Waddle 3, but it's very close between those second and third choices for me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I could see where Amon-Ra, if you wanted to put him above Garrett Wilson, I can see that because he's had the year of production. We know what they're going to do in that offense. They want to throw him the football a lot, especially on our third downs. I love Garrett Wilson, though. I've loved him since the draft. I think he has a lot of good traits. And, he just didn't have the year to prove it because his QB play was just so mediocre. And he played with 3 or 4 QBs, I believe. So not a fun year for him, but I still think that's the right order. Very tough, very tough. I love Jalen Waddle as well. He's just in a situation where, if Tua gets hurt again, who's the backup?
Switch it up a little bit here, and I'm going to go Jalen Waddle, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Garrett Wilson.
Wow.
Here's why. Jalen Waddle, I understand, Zack, I completely get what you're saying. With Tyreek Hill there, caps the ceiling a little bit. He was wide receiver 8 last year, even with Tyreek Hill there, which is just insane. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown was wide receiver 7. I do think that Jared Goff, I don't want to say he's the long-term solution. I don't think it's Hendon Hooker either. I mean, we've seen third-round picks, Matt Corral, Malik Willis. These guys are clearly not the future of their teams. Hendon Hooker could be that next guy, although I do think he's in a good situation if he has the ability to come and show what he can do in the NFL. And then I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. Now, look, I might like Garrett Wilson better than these other guys, but in the last podcast, I talked to you guys about the New York Jets upgrading their wide receiver core. If you guys remember me talking about that when I was saying that I think Elijah Moore is going to have a breakout year, Aaron Rodgers has shown, if anything, he's loyal to wide receivers that he likes. A couple guys came in that are Aaron Rodgers guys. I know Garrett Wilson could be that dude, but we're talking a veteran quarterback. He's got his guys in there. So I'm going Jalen Waddle. I know what he could be. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't think Jameson Williams, when he comes back, takes anything away from Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. Plus, look, my whole thing is too, and this is going to be for this entire thing, when I draft a team in a startup, I want to win right now. That is my priority. I am building my team to win the championship year 1. Chev, I feel like you're disagreeing with me a little bit, which is fine. You have the right to disagree. What are you thinking?
I mean, I don't think any of the wide receivers that were brought into the New York Jets are anywhere close Not
You
even
think
not
Allen
even
Lazard?
not even stinking close to Garrett Wilson. And to say you're a Garrett Wilson guy, that is asinine at this point because you think these guys are going to come in and take his share. That is just ridiculous in my opinion. I hope Zack agrees because you
Zack
think
might agree.
you think Randall Cobb is going to come in and cut into this. You think all these other bums that are coming to this team, Allen Lazard, the guy can't even play a full season.
What I will say about that situation, I don't agree with Mike at all. Like if I had the draft today, I'm drafting Garrett Wilson 1, but I am doing that with a slight bit of concern, and it's not the Dolphins fan in me. It's the fact that the Jets have been a joke for 2 decades. Like I don't think they've been in a playoff game in a very long time, right? Like 10 years, something like that. I think the last one was Mark Sanchez. So, and here's the thing, like, okay, Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback for what, 1, maybe 2 years. Do I trust the Jets to then fill in that quarterback spot competently? Like Zach Wilson's still a thing. And I don't think he's getting that much better. So, and look, I do have to say, because we are going to talk about another Jets player, the Jets draft last year was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. He knocked it out of the park. But I still don't trust that organization to get the quarterback position right after Aaron Rodgers.
I think they're done drafting QBs. If they're not done drafting QBs, they're pretty stupid because they have sucked at it. So they need to be full on. Whoever is the best QB in this free agency group, we better go get him. If that's not their motto, then yeah, I agree. Maybe Garrett Wilson's not your dude, but I don't see how it's. I don't know. Allen Lazard is going to do better than Garrett Wilson.
Oh no, I'm not saying that he's.
That's what you said. You say he's got rapport
no,
with
I'm saying
Aaron Rodgers.
What I said was that Aaron Rodgers tends to favor his guys. We're setting our queue once again. Breece Hall, ADP of 28, which is a 304. All these guys are in a row. Saquon Barkley and Jahmyr Gibbs. That's your 304, 305, and 306. In what order are you drafting these three and why? Tell you what, I'll go first this time. Here's how I'm doing it. Again, I want to win now. So I'm going to draft Saquon Barkley. I understand he has not signed his tender, but I believe that he will. Then I'm drafting Breece Hall, and then I'm drafting Jahmyr Gibbs. Here's why. Saquon Barkley, again, I want to win now. His backup, if he's not there, is Eric Gray. Eric Gray does not pose a threat to Saquon Barkley if Saquon Barkley is healthy. I can say that to you right now. Breece Hall, not completely healthy. They're saying that he might be there for week 1. That being said, he does have some, I don't want to say competition, but Zonovan Knight looked good when he was there. We know what Michael Carter can do. They did draft Israel Abanikanda as well. And Jahmyr Gibbs, the only reason I have him third, and again, we're splitting hairs here. I think he's going to be the pass catching back. All of a sudden, the Detroit Lions have a lot of weapons on offense, and David Montgomery's there too. David Montgomery's no slouch, by the way. David Montgomery is a very, very good NFL running back. So of the three, I think he has the most competition, which is why I put him third. Chev, what about you? Agree, disagree? What's your order?
Yeah, I think for me, it's going to be Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Saquon at this point. Saquon's 25 years old, had an injury with his ACL, getting older. I mean, I don't know what his future looks like with the Giants. I don't see him being on the Giants very much longer. I think that relationship is a little wonky at this point. You know, they want to sign him, but they don't have the money apparently to give it to him. So we'll see what happens there. But I just like the younger guys at this point a little bit more than Saquon. I think Saquon's going to outproduce a good amount of Jahmyr Gibbs, but the longevity and the pass catching out of Jahmyr Gibbs, I think is going to be pretty stinking good in the next few years.
I'm kind of in the same camp as Chev again. And Mike, like, I don't understand this. I understand the I'm trying to win now statement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's redraft. This is Dynasty.
I can't win now in Dynasty?
You can win now in Dynasty. You can also try and win now and plan for the long. You could try to win for the next 3 years. Like
Chev
you can try
Saquon
to build
Barkley's 25. You don't think Saquon Barkley's going to have a job when he's 26? He's going to just Ezekiel Elliott off a cliff or what?
Can Breece Hall not be what Saquon Barkley is?
I don't know. You just were talking about how the Jets were a trash franchise as a Dolphins fan.
and I also said that they nailed the draft last year, didn't I?
They did, yes.
They did. So I think that Breece Hall can be what Saquon Barkley was last year, and he's 22.
keep in mind, I did say that this particular one here, we're kind of splitting hairs. I love all these guys. That's just the order that I personally.
It's not for me. This is not splitting hairs. Like I'm pretty much exactly where Chev is at. I'm going.
You don't
Brees
have any
Hall.
hairs to split, Zach.
Oh, sheesh.
Well, you sure do have hairs to split right there.
He's got a nice looking beard.
There you go.
Yeah, I got a couple hairs
Yeah,
left.
I'm going with the same answer as Chev here. I mean, for me, if I can get Brees Hall right away, I will. I'll take Jahmyr Gibbs second, and then I'll take Saquon Barkley third. There might even be players I'd take above Saquon Barkley, and it's not because I don't like Saquon Barkley. I'm not in love with the situation in New York. I don't know what the future looks like for Saquon, and we saw that running backs didn't get a lot of love in free agency this year or in the draft. So
yeah, especially
I'll go with the positional security of a 22 or a 21-year-old running back that's locked in for 4 or 5 years that has a ceiling of Saquon Barkley. That's what I'll do.
Fair enough. Let's go to the next one. So this is a would you rather, not a set your queue, but would you rather draft TJ Hawkinson, Minnesota Vikings tight end? His ADP is 71. That's the 6'11. TJ Hawkinson and Jahan Dotson with an ADP of 91, which is the 807. Or Terry McLaurin, ADP is 72, which is the 612. And Dalton Kincaid, ADP of 95 and the 811. Ooh, this is a tough one because I like all these players, to be honest with you. Zach, let's take it back to you. What are you doing here?
This is a good one.
And Bob says this one's easy.
Like, what is he talking about?
I'm sorry. I don't think it's that
disagree.
easy. I really don't think so.
This is not that easy for me, to be honest with you, because I like both sides. I really do, but we have to pick one. So Zach, let's start with you. I mean, feel free to talk through your process too. If it helps, sometimes I talk things out, although I do it standing in my toolbox with nobody around me at work. Makes me seem a little insane, but sometimes it helps. But Zach, what are you doing here?
This is a really tough one. I really want to know what Bob was thinking. Like, what was so easy about this? I'm actually going to go McLaurin and Dalton Kincaid here. I think that Terry McLaurin is a safe wide receiver too. And I don't think that we've seen his ceiling because he's been limited by quarterback play and subpar offensive coaching.
I would agree.
Dalton Kincaid's ceiling is higher than TJ Hawkinson's ceiling. So for that reason, I feel like I'm getting a bargain if I'm drafting him at the 811. I feel like I'm getting a bargain there. And what my approach in startup drafts as it relates to Dalton Kincaid is once we get past the first 5 or 6 rounds of surefire players, my targets are now players that in a year from now will be drafted much higher than they were drafted now. So Dalton Kincaid for me next year, if he has a great ceiling in Buffalo, a great season in Buffalo, is a 4th or 5th round pick. And for that reason, I'm going to choose Terry McLaurin and Dalton Kincaid here.
Okay. For me, the answer would be TJ Hawkinson and then trade back to the 612 and draft Terry McLaurin. But it doesn't always happen. That's the side I would prefer if I could do that, but I can't. I'm going to agree with Zach here. I'm going to go the Terry McLaurin and Dalton Kincaid side. And look, I love TJ Hawkinson. This is not a slight on him. I love Jahan Dotson. Both these guys are players that I target when I'm looking to either draft and fill out my team or possibly add to my team later on. But the fact of the matter is Terry McLaurin is one of those guys where, Cortland Sutton to a certain point in his career before he got hurt was quarterback proof. DeAndre Hopkins is a guy that was quarterback proof until obviously, some things just kind of not going great for him last year. I think Terry McLaurin is that guy, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think he has a decently high ceiling and he is a safer floor than Jahan Dotson does too. And then Dalton Kincaid, do I think he could be what TJ Hawkinson is? I don't know. That's a good question because we haven't seen him play yet. But we do think that the ceiling is fairly high for him, especially with the Buffalo offense. The coordinator, I can't remember his name. I apologize. Bills offensive coordinator. I know you're a huge fan. I'll send you a shirt. They said he's going to be used like a wide receiver. So the great thing is they know he's not a great blocker. They're not going to ask him to do that. They're going to play him to his strengths. That's what I want to hear from an offensive coordinator. I understand it's preseason, hyperbole, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I'm taking the Terry McLaurin, Dalton Kincaid side. Bob, I love you. I got to disagree. That was not as easy as I think you want it to be. By the way, all these guys, I know Hawk and Kincaid. Bob is huge into those guys. So love that he put them on here. Chev, what about you? What are you doing here? Also, was this an easy decision for you? I'm saying probably not.
No, because I do love TJ Hawkinson. I love what he brings to the table. He's going to get 120 plus targets this upcoming year. He's going to be a wide receiver, or sorry, a tight end 2 or 3 probably again this upcoming year as well. But I do like Terry McLaurin and the Kincaid side better. I think that tight end landscape, Kincaid can climb that a little bit faster than what Jahan Dotson can do to climb the wide receiver landscape.
For sure.
And it's just a little easier to find some wide receivers as well in the drafts. It seems like tight end's a little bit tougher. So I'm going to go with the young tight end, and I'm going to go with the wide receiver that has put up good numbers. You know, I've kind of been a hater on Terry McLaurin just because everybody values him so highly, and he just hasn't done it yet. And this last year, he said, all right, I'm going to do a little bit better. I'm going to be one of those wide receiver ones. And he got pretty stinking close if he didn't do it. So I'm going with the McLaurin and Kincaid side because I think Kincaid can catch TJ Hawkinson using the. They said he's a weapon. That's I saw that as well. He's a weapon in that Bills offense. So let's see it.
I do think that I think Don Kincaid could be a tight end 1 right off the rip. Just you're bringing up how these tight ends finished. By the way, only one tight end last year over 1,000 yards, Travis Kelce, of course. And TJ Hawkinson was tight end 2 last year. 914 yards on 86 catches and 6 touchdowns. So it feels a little weird to shy away from the guy who was the tight end 2. Oddly, Tyler Higbee was tight end 6. Evan Ingram, tight end 5. So
it's so easy to be a top 10 tight end at this point. Why can Kincaid in that offense not be that dude? Dawson Knox, we've seen that guy be a tight end 1. Like, why not Kincaid? Kincaid's a better player than Dawson Knox, in my opinion. So why not? I know Dawson Knox is still there, but Dawson Knox is not Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid can just line up outside and be a beast and do his own thing. I think he's a step over Dawson Knox, and we'll see that in the upcoming years.
And in our last episode, I statted out Greg Dulcich, and I talked about how he could have been, had he stayed on the path that he was on before he had that hamstring strain, he would have been tight end 14. So I definitely think that Dalton Kincaid's ceiling is, and I love Greg Dulcich. I think his ceiling is much higher than that of Greg Dulcich's. You punted quarterback in the first round, which I love to do. So we got to set our cues again, boys. Let's do it up. Deshaun Watson, ADP of 14, which is the 202. Anthony Richardson, ADP of 15, which is the 203. And Kyler Murray, which is an ADP of 17, 205. Guys, what are we doing? Who wants to go first? Zach, you want to go first? All right, go ahead, Zach. Do it up.
Oh, man. Whew.
This is not easy.
Yeah, if you punted quarterback in the first round and these are your 3 choices, you might be punting on 2023.
I got to be honest with you. If these are your 3 choices, I'm going to continue punting, and I'm going to look for like Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm just going to draft a wide receiver here. But
I'm not because I think that there's if you, for example, draft Kyler Murray, I mean, there's a 2024 plan in mind there, right? Yeah, and same like you're not drafting Anthony Richardson for his 2023 production. So I'm not touching Deshaun Watson. I don't believe in the talent anymore. Deshaun Watson, I got to see it to believe it again. Okay, I got to see it to believe. To draft him 14th overall, I got to see it to believe it. All right, it's been 3 years since I've seen it, so I'm not touching that. I will draft Anthony Richardson or Kyler Murray. If I had to pick of those 2, I'd probably go Kyler Murray because I've already seen it with Kyler Murray. I've already seen the production of a top 5 quarterback. And I know for a fact that I can probably guarantee that a top 5, top 10 quarterback in 2024. I don't know what's happening there with Anthony Richardson. If I draft Kyler Murray, I'm drafting my team now for 2024, and that's my plan the rest of the draft. I'm trading back. I'm getting draft picks. I'm drafting rookies, so on and so forth. So it's a very if those are your 3 quarterbacks that you're left with, it's time to, in my opinion, to start looking at 2024 as your first competitive year in that league.
So for me, I think Anthony Richardson starts day 1. I know that Shane Steichen said that, we're going to possibly start Gardner Minshew. I just don't think it happens, to be honest with you. And I think the good thing is you're going to get an every week starter of Anthony Richardson, and you're going to get a lot of rushing too, which is why I'm taking Anthony Richardson first. I would go Deshaun Watson next. And yes, you know what, Zach, you're absolutely right. We have seen Kyler Murray We have never seen Kyler Murray in a Drew Petzing offense before. I think Anthony Richardson's going to have a pretty safe floor. I don't think it's going to be as catastrophically low as some people believe. Is he going to throw interceptions? Yeah, of course he is. Is he going to fumble the ball? Yeah, everybody does that, especially young quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson, I'm going to bank on the upside. Kyler Murray would be ahead of Deshaun Watson if he wasn't hurt right now. But he is, and I understand, Zach, I agree, 2024 plan in place. Right now, I'm just going on health, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
It's something that I definitely look to when I do a startup. Chev, what are you doing here?
I'm just
What
going
are
to leave it the same. I like Deshaun
you-
Watson this upcoming year. I think he's got good pieces around him to work with. I'm going with him there. I love Anthony Richardson as well. I mean, they've got a lot of faith in this kid. Everything that I'm hearing, he's impressed, which is every rookie has impressed this upcoming year. So I still think he's going to be a good player, a good guy that, maybe you don't count on early on in 2023, but hopefully he shows progressions throughout the year and just continues to get better and better. Kyler Murray, I love Kyler Murray as well. He's a boomer sooner, but the guy has never thrown for like 4,000 yards, never thrown for 30 TDs. Only thing that really got him to be this top QB is his rushing. Then he goes and tears his ACL, and he's not a guy that's been injury free. He hurt his ankle as well last year or 2 years ago. I'm worried about Kyler Murray. I don't know if he'll ever get back to being top 5 just because other guys are throwing the ball a lot more than him. And I think it's going to be tough for him to get there. Can he be top 10? Yes. But I think these other guys have better opportunity to get there at this point. And the Cardinals organization has been rough. It's been a bad organization. So we'll see if they make the right decisions.
I want to counter that real quick. Kyler Murray had 3,971 yards in 2020 and 3,800 yards in 2021.
Not
Okay.
4,000.
The other thing is, the Cardinals
That's
have been
right.
the Cardinals have been a mess. They pretty much nailed the 2023 rookie NFL draft, and they're in a beautiful position in 2024 to potentially add Marvin Harrison. I know we're foreshadowing a lot, but that's a team that doesn't look like it's trying to draft a quarterback next year by the contract they gave him, by drafting an offensive lineman, so on and so forth. So I like the position that Kyler Murray is in. Like, I hear what you're saying, but he can absolutely he's 25 years old, and he absolutely can still continue to get better. Like, we've seen Josh Allen and these kind of Patrick Mahomes is now in his prime at 27, 28. And that's the position that Kyler will be in 2024. He'll be 26 years old. And if I'm the Cardinals, I'm just like trying to get those first and second overall pick. I'll take Marvin Harrison. I'll destroy somebody else next year for one of those quarterbacks. I will trade the entire farm if you want to come get Caleb Williams. And I mean, to me, that's a very enviable position to be in, setting up the future of that organization.
Who are you drafting and who are you willing to miss out on? And I think that's an important question. Sometimes we should say, hey, you know what? I don't like this player for blah, blah, blah reasons. I'm willing to be wrong about him. But Chev, Jerry Jeudy with an ADP of 77 or Brandon Ayuk with an ADP of 80. So there's not a big gap here. Just talking about Jerry Jeudy on the last one. Who you drafting? Who you willing to miss out on?
I'm going with Jerry Jeudy. I am willing to miss out on Brandon Ayuk.
Okay.
I trust Russell Wilson that he'll come back and do the right things. We talked about it last pod. Sean Payton has brought great offenses to the NFL. I'm sticking with Jerry Jeudy at this point. Brandon Ayuk has a lot more big mouths to feed. You have Kittle, you have McCaffrey, you have Debo. I mean, there's a lot of dudes that need the football, or they're going to get a little angry. So I'm sticking with Jerry Jeudy at this point.
Zach, are you in agreement, disagreement?
Yeah, and it's a lot closer than I actually anticipated. If you remember a year ago, I was completely off Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk was a player a year ago. I'm like, let me see it first. And we saw it. We did see it. Now, we did see it because Debo Samuel missed time with injury. There was a new quarterback in town, Brock Purdy, who I think had a better rapport with Ayuk than he did with Debo. But I agree with Chev. There's a lot to, and it's not a high volume passing offense in San Francisco. Whereas I don't think Javonte Williams will be there much this year. And I don't think they're going to base that rushing offense around Samaje Perine. So I think they're going to throw the ball a little bit more in Denver, which is why in one of our previous episodes, Mike, you talked about Dulcich. I talked about Jeudy as breakout player. So I'm going to, in agreement with Chev, I would rather draft Jerry Jeudy, and I would rather miss out on Brandon Ayuk here.
I would sell Ayuk, man. That's what I would have done with him. I would have tried to sell him after this season, to be honest.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I'm all in on Jerry Jeudy. And, look, we could say this. The San Francisco 49ers offense, it's not very explosive. It's very efficient. If you look at how that offense is run, they sustain drives. They're extremely efficient. They're not like a big play offense like the Chiefs or the Eagles are, where they kind of chip away. And especially that will be the case if Brock Purdy is the starting quarterback. Not a big arm dude, just very efficient, runs the offense very well. So I'm okay to grab Jerry Jeudy and miss out on Brandon Ayuk. And gentlemen, our last part of the night, one of the hardest decisions you'll ever have to face is that of whether to draft the best player available or drafting to fill out your lineup. Why is consistently drafting the best player available over team needs so important? I'll tell you this, because you don't want to put a square peg into a round hole. You're going to be taking guys way too early when you do stuff like that. And for the most part, unless you're drafting right before the season, unless your startup is like a week before the season, hey, let's do this quick and get it done, you have many months to make trades and make roster moves to fill out the rest of your lineups. Gentlemen, do you have anything to add to that? Do we agree or disagree?
I get frustrated when I'm in this is redraft, by the way. I know our Dynasty pod, but in redraft, when somebody drafts to fill their lineup, like they draft a kicker and a defending player before like some of these good guys, it blows my mind. But then I look back and I'm like, wow, they have the best kicker and the best defense. Are they playing the game better than I am? No, but it just angers me when I see that. It's just very frustrating. I don't know why that came to my mind, but I felt like it meant to be said on a Dynasty podcast for some reason.
Yeah. No, I completely get it. It's like they just go through like quarterback first, then running back, then wide receiver. I completely get that. Zach, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, it's interesting because all of us are doing a combined draft right now. And when you draft in let's say on Sleeper, right? And you're in the draft and you go to the team tab, it shows you your starting lineup. And so a lot of times you want to fill that lineup. You're like, oh man, I don't have a flex play. I gotta fill. And that's not the best. That's not the best way to do it. I've drafted guys that are in my flex right now that they're not going to be there. They're not going to be there. You go with the best player available, and you figure that out later. You've got a couple weeks or months to set your lineup to have those discussions and dialogue. And I'm already looking. I'm already looking at other teams in the league and who's got too much of this, who's got not enough of this. What moves can I make? And that's where Dynasty becomes the chess game that it is, where you're thinking 3-4 moves ahead, whereas, as Chev said, some people are like, I gotta plug in a tight end. Let's go. Like that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it.